Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Mystic and the Physicist. I'm William Arntz, the in-resident physicist, here with my lovely wife, Deirdre Hade, the in-resident mystic. And today, we are going to be talking about the reality of magic, which I believe is your domain.
Well, it depends. How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
We only have 10 minutes. How far can we go?
Well, that depends. If you want to go farther, we can just bend time and space and...
Time and space. You can do that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Well,
let's
do it
okay,
up. Let's do it.
Close your eyes. Okay, close your eyes. Take a big, deep breath. Hold your breath. Now open your eyes.
Honey, we're still here and it was 5 seconds.
Oh, drats. Sometimes the magic works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, that's what makes it magical. Mm-hmm. But being here with you is magical. Oh, so we have the good magic, Mon. The good magic. The Irie magic. The magic of magic. So, moving on to magic. Science has had trouble with magic forever. They're always trying to explain something magical. So if something appears in the sky, why is the moon going away? Oh, it's a lunar eclipse. You see, they're always going and explaining things and pushing the boundaries. But that is why we need the mystics to keep those boundaries wide open.
Right, and I think it's kind of unfair that we've gotten so scientific that we've lost the magic. Because we as humans intrinsically need to believe in something. We need magic. And when we feel like we have a little magic in our life, we're just happier. And we feel like, wow, there's no magic left, we get kind of depressed.
Well, that's true. And the thing we've noticed is that people's attitude about magic is very susceptible to. I remember reading a story about in Tibet when people first went there in the 19th century. The Tibetan monks would do this thing. They had long distances to travel and they would boing along. They could take 30 feet between boing, 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 and people would report these monks just boinging down the highway. Well, the reports started coming back to Europe. Europeans started going to see this and saying, well, that couldn't be possible. And within, a decade, it died out and the monks aren't boinging any longer.
Right. Well, that's because we don't believe. Belief is a magical energy. When you really believe something, there's a magic to having it created. And we hear this a lot of times of, there was a time of Avalon, or there was a time when we could communicate with nature's spirits. Even today, people go to Ireland and, where are those fairies? Because people said, I really saw them. What I see as a mystic, working with thousands of people and working with people's minds and their souls and healing, is that when we don't believe that something could happen, a part of our brain that perceives shuts down. And because we are all connected, if enough people shut down that part of our brain, the magic that was no longer exists.
Yes, they've done a lot of studies of the relationship between belief and perception. Now, we always think that our perception, we've got this little camcorder in here that's recording everything. We got the little microphones in here recording everything. It turns out that's not true. They've done these experiments where basically based on your beliefs, you see things or you don't see things. I saw this one interview where these scientists brought these folks from Africa, indigenous people who had never seen modern civilization. They wondered what they would say about seeing. They showed them this video of in the city. It was a small village and cars going by and all this. And at the end, they asked the indigenous people, "What did you notice about that?" And you know what the answer was?
What?
That was a very healthy chicken. And the scientists were like, "What chicken? There was no chicken in that video." They went back and watched it, and sure enough, at one point, a chicken goes running by.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. That's exactly what we're talking about, and I feel like that's really in alignment with what our purposes for coming out together and having this conversation so that we can marry the rational and the mystery, the science and the magical. And it's funny because my parents were both research scientists, physiologists, biochemists, and I grew up in a laboratory with lots of theorems and numbers, and I noticed at a very young age that my dad, who was always very studious, the only time there was a sparkle in his eye when he was doing his experiments is when an accident would happen, and he'd go, "Oh my gosh, there was an accident in the centrifuge, and look what happened." And he'd be so excited because an accident happened and he discovered something. So, I don't know, accident, magic, what do you think?
Well, there's a whole list of very famous scientific, I just read one yesterday about Postit Notes, something we use all day. Someone at 3M was trying to develop a super adhesive and it fell on the floor. And so they thought, oh, I won't be able to pick it up. So they went and it just peeled right off. And they're like, well, what am I going to do with it? And a little bit later, they had some notes. And so they cut up some pieces of paper and stuck this on it. And they've said, oh, it'll pull off because it's not a super adhesive. It's a quasi adhesive. And then Postit Notes were born.
Yeah. And then our whole life changed. I mean, I personally can't live without Postit Notes. But back to magic. And I guess if you were at a different time, you would probably think Postit Notes are pretty magical. But Dean Radin, our friend, he's got a new book out, right? And
oh yeah, called Real Magic.
Real Magic, and he's a physicist. He's a scientist. What's going on here about that?
Well, Dean, actually, he's a research psychologist.
Oh, okay.
And he's the head scientist at ION's Institute for Noetic Science. So he's written this book, and he classifies it. There's 3 types of real magic. The one type of real magic is, you could say, it's like ESP, or it's remote view, it's seeing into the future. Mm-hmm. That's the first type. The second type is intention, where because of your intent, you want something to happen. And there's studies done with random number generators. And the third type is speaking to being, consciousness on the other side, beings that have died or who knows what they've done, but they are communicating. And so he's really looking at this again from a scientific point of view because, as I said, science, when it's practiced properly, doesn't gobble up the science, but it wants to understand it and then move on to the next mystery. So my question to you as someone who lives in the mystery, are there certain things that science will never be able to decode?
Absolutely. I fully believe that there are things that science cannot decode. I feel like we'll get really close. But the fabulous thing about this world is that just when we think we've controlled something and we understand it, poof, something comes up that goes, uh-oh, I guess we didn't understand it. I mean, to take from your world, quantum physics, like, oh, we understand what's going on, and then a poof, oh, wait a minute, a particle's here, now particle's way over there. Where did it go? Where did that happen? And that is the mystery of magic. And I don't know what I'm all about as a mystic, and I feel like, why are we here talking about this, is really for you people to find the magic inside of you again, along with that great science knowledge, because that magic puts you into the greater reality of existence. It does lift you out of time and space so that you have synchronicities that you can never, ever put together. It brings in grace. It brings in a feeling of awe and wonderment, the deep feelings that want us to be alive, that really make us happy. So even if you don't believe in magic, I would say just pretend like you believe in magic. Because that'll take you there.
I'm going to jump in here a second.
Yes,
and I think the important thing is, don't let science talk you out of it. Don't let science talk you out of the magic, because there's a whole branch of science, materialistic science, where they basically say anything having to do with the mystical, with anything that's not physical, is all hocus pocus or it's illusion. don't let them talk you out of it, because there are so many accounts of things happening that are inexplicable. I read one last night about this woman in the World War II, a nun, who, while she was being tortured by the Gestapo, and there's records of that, communicated to a priest to help him make sure she didn't get deported, and also communicated to a naval vessel. And there's records of this. And this woman, there were so many records of this things happening. She once showed up and saved some people on a submarine, that when Charles de Gaulle was giving her the French Medal of Honor at the end of the World War II, he gives her the Medal of Honor and leans over to someone and says, "I hope she's not getting one from Churchill right now, too." Because this woman bilocated, and there's other stories of this. So these stories that are out there, I really encourage people to research them and look at them, and don't take what you hear out there from the scientific community, because I think they've really done a disservice to humanity.
Yes, and there is a greatness that science has given us, but I think, my whole point of view is let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. And there is a way, there is an opportunity we all have to access that inner place inside of each of us that is magical, that actually can create magic, that can actually remote view, can see what's coming down the line, can actually speak to an angelic presence, can actually set an intention and have your intention created. And this is all working with subtle energy fields. And it's really time to come out and have this conversation and share what the steps are to doing this, and so we can all have some fun with magic.
Well, I think, and I hope that science is at the point where there was a point at the beginning of the 20th century, a very famous quote, I think it was Lord Rutherford, said that, well, science has hit the end now. We have discovered everything we can discover in physics. And of course, then quantum physics happened, and then relativity happened. So people are feeling they've got to the edge of the scientific model with the Higgs boson, or the standard model of quantum physics. We're kind of at the end. I think the next era will be once you admit that there are energies that are non-physical, once you admit there are realms and dimensions that are non-physical, the whole thing blows wide open again, and then we're back to what Dean Radin's talking about, real magic.
Real magic.
Real
Yay.
magic.
So thank you. I think that's it.
I think that's it. So should we want to try disappearing again?
Yes. Okay, ready?
Okay, 1, 2, 3.